And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore. We never sit out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. Today, we got some more bowl games for you. We got the start of the bowl season. Now, if you're listening on Spotify, I'm sorry we don't have the South Alabama Western Michigan game. All right, we posted that one out on YouTube. Okay, just because stuff was happening, whatever. Basically, we nailed it. All right, if you do want to check that out for yourself, you can check that out on our YouTube channel. But what we got right now is we got 6 bowl games we're going to talk about today, from the Frisco Bowl all the way to the Gasparilla Bowl. And the rest of the bowl season, we're going to have just as good a coverage. All right, the rest of the way. So make sure you're tuned in, subscribe, like the video if you like the content, all that jazz. And just make sure you're tuned in, because when you're, doing your bowl pools, or you're betting on these bowl games, or doing prop plays, it is important to know exactly who's playing and who's not playing, and what coaches are coaching and not coaching, and that's what you can get right here. So make sure you guys are locked in for the rest of this bowl season and the coaching carousel as well once we get further into this off season. So, CD, how are we feeling about these bowl games? Because I feel great about these. I've got 4 best bets in 6 games.
I know it's pretty cool. I think they did a good job with some matchups here. We're seeing some value as well. Diving deep into who's playing, who's not, like you said. So excited to talk about them for sure. Bowl season is my favorite part of the year. I just think it's so awesome. There's games all week long, starting in the morning, throughout the night. It's so fun to just always be checking. I love that. More college
Yeah.
football is better for us.
And that week of Christmas, you don't have school, you don't have work, right? It's just wake up, watch football, go to sleep.
Exactly.
It is awesome. So, yeah, I guess to go through the agenda today, we're just going to go through those 6 games, and then we're going to talk about our best bets at the end of the show. No dirty dogs, all right? Unless you actually think Tulane has a chance of beating Florida, which on this show we don't really believe that, but could happen, I guess. That would be a wild upset. That'd probably be the biggest upset of the entire bowl season. But uh, yeah, let's just get into it, I guess. Let's talk about the Frisco Bowl. Okay, talking about Memphis, we're talking about West Virginia here. Neil Brown gets the can. All right, and I've been high on West Virginia for the majority of this season, maybe undeservedly so. I also didn't hate the contract extension last year that you gave Neil Brown, given what he did with last year's team with the talent that he had. Now, if you do look at that schedule from last year, you may look back and be like, yeah, maybe that turned out to be a more favorable schedule than we thought. And then this year, he gets the shorter end of the butt stick, and they get absolutely screwed with their schedule, and they go 6-6, and he gets the can. Which I don't know that I necessarily agree with, and we'll talk about more with the hiring Rich Rod now back in West Virginia, which is pretty crazy. We'll talk about all that stuff with the coaching carousel later. But Memphis is a 4.5 point favorite, and I'm here to tell you that I like that a lot. We're going back to the Dallas area. You know, a quarterback for Memphis by the name of Seth Hennigan happens to be from Grapevine, Texas, which is pretty darn close. Basically playing in his hometown over there. It's not that far of a drive. Honestly, from Memphis, it's not that far of a travel. It is a much further travel from West Virginia. And also, too, with the head coaching change. I like Memphis a lot in this spot. Are you with me here?
I'm with you here too. Yeah, the 4.5. Yeah, it's a little bit to eat there, but I don't hate it at all. Even though sometimes you do get some rejuvenation after a tough year with a new hire. A lot to prove there for those players. Rich Rod coming in. I do like the hire. We'll get to all that stuff. I know you guys are anxious about to hear our thoughts on the coaching carousel. So much is going on right now in college ball. We're kind of just focused right now on what's going on the field and rewarding all these teams, for working so hard, making and putting themselves in a chance for a 13th game. So yeah, I like Memphis here. To me, it comes down to right stopping the run. Obviously, it's West Virginia, like Jaheim White, C.J. Donaldson, like those guys are still playing. If I'm not mistaken, right? You got a couple of wide receivers that have been hurt. They're not opting out; they've been hurt. Jaden Braid, Traylon Ray, a couple guys there that they've had to deal with as well. But especially with a guy like Josiah Trotter, who's one of the better players I think on his West Virginia defense at linebacker, if he's not going to be in there, right? Mario Anderson, a guy we've been high on for a long time since the summer, right? I took him in our fantasy draft for the American League for one of the wild card spots, for this Memphis team. I think if they can get any kind of red zone stops on defense, West Virginia is a team that struggles to get stops struggles to score in the red zone. Right, they are 12th out of 16 teams in the Big 12 in red zone scoring percentage. Right? So if you can win those small margins here, I know Memphis' defense is not world class. They're not going to be this year, right? But they've got zero major opt outs. I think they'll put up points. Feel pretty good about them at 4.5. And yeah, like you said, Seth Hennigan, kind of a homecoming game for him, big time spot. I think Memphis and this team, I think it means a lot for them this bowl game. Right? Not that doesn't mean a ton for West Virginia, but I think it's going to. I'm not worried about laying an egg here as a favorite.
Yeah, I do look like down the stretch, like Memphis, I thought did a good job against particular teams stopping the run when they needed to, right? And that's exactly what you just talked about. That West Virginia is going to try to run the ball here. If they can't run the ball, then what are they going to do? And not that Memphis, I believe, look, not that I believe that their defense is absolutely ridiculous because it's not. It's in fact quite not good. I think West Virginia's defense is worse than Memphis's defense. And like you said, you talk about even losing players on top of that, losing your coach. Yeah, I just think it'd be really tough for West Virginia to come in here and get a win over Memphis. Now, I think West Virginia probably overall is more talented in a sense than Memphis, but I do think that this Memphis team matches up well. I think they have less opt outs. I think it's less travel. And I also think that they're playing better football right now. So, yeah, I guess that's where I'm at with this. And I feel pretty good about that too, by the way. I like Memphis in this spot right here.
It's
The
not crazy at all, especially if you get Garrett Green having to throw the football. We talked about earlier in the season when he has to throw the ball more than 30 times a game. That is not who he is. He struggles. You're going to get turnovers. You're going to get inconsistency there, and you could see some things, kind of falling apart there for West Virginia if Memphis does jump on them. Yeah, I don't hate it at all.
Now I will say that like there are less effective quarterbacks that have actually done pretty well against Memphis's secondary, right? I mean, I'm looking at like Navy's Blake Horvath, right, threw for 192 yards against his Memphis secondary. Uh, Chandler Morris had an absolute day against this. Owen McCown had an absolute day against this secondary, right? There is room for quarterbacks to have really good days against this Memphis secondary and pass rush. However, you have to be able to distribute the ball accurately and effectively. And I'm not sure that Garrett Green has done that quite literally all season. So, as explosive as he is, as good of an athlete as he is, as much of a leader as he is, I don't know that. I don't know that he's got the goods in the arm talent to take advantage of this Memphis secondary that, in my opinion, hasn't been quite up to snuff. You know.
Yeah, that's not crazy at all.
Let's head over to the next bowl game here. After just talking about that Frisco Bowl. Let's go Boca Raton. Let's talk about the Boca Raton Bowl. James Madison playing against Western Kentucky, a Sun Belt versus CUSA matchup here. And you're looking at a Sun Belt. Here's where I get confused, right? Because early in the season, the CUSA champion, right, matched up with the Sun Belt team early in the year, and or was it a Sun Belt team? Got maybe smacked, and then they played a MAC team, got smacked. And then they played Southern Miss and smacked Southern Miss. I'm talking about Jacksonville State. I'm just talking about like the CUSA's matchup versus out of conference. Like, how good is this CUSA conference actually, right? Because we know that the Sun Belt may be a little bit less effective at good as maybe they were last year. And last year, the Sun Belt struggled in their bowl games, right? So I actually struggled a lot picking this game because I do think that, yeah, Western Kentucky, and I'll let you talk about some of the opt outs in this game, particularly at the quarterback position. And we don't, by the way, we don't know who technically is playing what at quarterback, but there are three quarterbacks in the transfer portal for Western Kentucky. And Western Kentucky's also been very solid in bowl games in the past. And was a really tough game for me because when I look at Sunbelt versus CUSA, I do see a talent difference there. However, I this is a tough game for me to pick.
It really is. I will say, yes, there's a ton of people in the portal for Western Kentucky, but keep in mind, Tyson Helton has been pretty open to letting players be in the portal and then play. Now, if you're taking visits all throughout this week, which we've seen some guys on maybe the defensive side of the ball be doing that, potentially you're not going to be practicing. probably won't be able to play in that game, but I expect Caden Velkamp to play in this game. TJ Finley is a guy, right, that's in the portal. There's their backup, guy transferred over, kind of been everywhere, down there in that southeast region over in Texas State a year ago. Tanner Helton, their third string quarterback, he's also in the portal as well. And you also got,
It's
six,
funny.
seven other starters as well in the portal. So it could be a tough spot where if you see these guys, and it could be a live bet thing where it's like, oh, look who's not playing for Western Kentucky right now. And then you could find some value there with James Madison. Right now, I'm going to just assume that Caden Velkamp's going to play, and a lot of these other starters are going to play. But now let's go about with a JMU. They're having problems at the quarterback spot, too. Alonzo Barnett, right, a guy that's played very good football for them this year in the Sun Belt. He's hurt. Remember, he got hurt on one of the last plays of the game against Marshall. I think that was overtime, right? Double overtime. Took a sack, got hurt there, limped off the field. He's not going to be playing this game. And neither is Dylan Morris, who just had surgery, offseason quarterback that transferred over from Washington, former highly rated recruit. Obviously a very talented player in his own right. So that leads us to the third string there, and that's Billy Atkins, right? He's a guy, he's going to start for them. I think it's his second career start. He started, I think, back in 2022 against Marshall. Was not great at all, but he's been getting better and better. I think they feel pretty excited about what he can do in his talent he does have. He does throw a nice deep ball. I went back and watched his film in high school, right? So you guys don't have to, so you're welcome for that. But he throws a really nice deep ball, and he's got some good mobility. He's got a verified 4.7 back in high school there. So he could be a very interesting spot here. And you remember a team just a couple weeks ago, right? Jackson State ran the ball all over Western Kentucky twice, back-to-back weeks there, especially with a quarterback too, right? Remember Tyler Huff, CUSA Pride Player of the Year. He's a guy that ran all over them, along with the running back there. I think JMU's going to have a similar thing, especially if Ayo
A day.
Adayi, if he's healthy as well. If not, they've kind of rotated guys in there as well. So I don't expect a huge drop off, but yeah, I like this JMU team here. I think we're picking at 7.5, right? Because the line's kind of been all over the place this week. So settling at 7.5 at the time we're recording this here. Like I said, run the football,
I guess
stop the run.
you want to pick it at 7? I mean, there's mostly 7s out there.
Yeah, I'll go 7. That helps
All
me.
right. All right, so we know which way you're leaning right here. I also want to mention too, like you want to talk about how terrible Western Kentucky's schedule is. I'll say that James Madison's schedule was probably one of the easiest in the Sun Belt as well. So I don't think there's a huge strength of schedule, you know, uh, argument to be made. I'll take James Madison win, but I'll take Western Kentucky actually in the spot. I do think quarterback is a bigger issue for James Madison than it is Western Kentucky if either TJ Finley or Caden Velp can't play. If you remember, Turner Helton actually did start in the famous Toastery Bowl last year until Caden Veltkamp came in against Old Dominion and then had his legacy game that gave him his fame at Western Kentucky. So, and fun fact too, Turner Helton is Clay Helton's kid, right? So Tyson Helton's nephew, right? So there maybe was a little bit of nepotism involved in that game, but it is what it is, right? So if Turner Helton is playing, I would flip this, right? And I think Turner Helton is not good enough to to play Division I college football. I really do believe that. In watching his limited action, I think that James Madison would just eat him alive, right? So, but if this is Veltkamp, I think he can do enough to keep this a pretty close game. But you're right. Running the football is something that Western Kentucky struggles to stop, right? And something that they've also struggled to do. Now, late in the game, I will respect Western Kentucky's, sorry, not late in the game, late in the season. I'll respect their effort to try to run the football with Elijah Young. However, I don't know that you're going to be able to do that against James Madison in this front. So uh, I like your pick right there. I'm going to slightly fade you a little bit there just because of the quarterback uncertainty. I think is a bigger deal for James Madison than it is Western Kentucky. Again, if TJ Finley and Velkamp plays, if Turner Helton plays, then I'm absolutely switching my pick here, and I'm just going to take James Madison and lay the points there. Now, it was interesting though because the line kind of fluctuated. It opened at 7, moved up to 9.5, and then maybe there's some information coming out that maybe Velkamp is that guy that's playing. Maybe that's why that dropped down to 7. So interesting line movement to watch right there. But in terms of a coaching matchup, I mean, do you feel like there's a coaching edge? I don't really feel like there's a big coaching edge in this game.
I respect both these coaches. Both these coaches have been around the block. Bob Chesney, obviously, first year guy with JMU, first year guy, head coach in the FBS, but he's been around the block. Very successful head coach in his own right. Obviously, our guy Tyson Helton has done great things there for the Hilltoppers offensively, especially. They've churned out offense coordinator after offense coordinator for some of these upper level programs in the Power Four. So yeah, I don't think so. It's gonna be one that's very interesting to watch. When this came out, this was one that definitely caught my eye in terms of like two programs that are the better programs or well resourced programs in their respective conferences, as well as two coaches too. I think that are pretty damn good. So it'll be very interesting to see. I'm not worried about any kind of egg or whatever being laid here, even though these teams maybe didn't accomplish the goals that they had in mind coming into the season. I think both these teams were potential guys that wanted to win their conferences, like every team does, obviously. But for JMU, what they did last year, Western Kentucky, in a year where Liberty does drop down, you do have a chance to win. The CUSA, you don't get it done, but yeah, I'm very excited for this matchup here.
Let's move on. Let's head over to the LA Bowl, where a really, really good matchup. One of my favorite matchups of these set of bowl games that we're covering in this episode. UNLV and Cal. This line's it's a 1 point spread. That's how you know, like, this is solid. Mendoza is in the portal, right? You Cal fans, your team has been elevated, I think, this year by Fernando Mendoza at that quarterback position because there has been an inability to run the ball at times, which is funny because you have two pretty good running backs, I think. You also got your best receiver in the portal. On the UNLV side, this is a team that just lost their coach, Barry Odom, over to Purdue. Now I don't know that their transfer portal losses, and you can touch on this a little bit more. I don't know that their transfer portal losses are as devastating as some of the top tier guys on this Cal football team, but I think these are two teams that played good enough football to have a better record than they have right now. I think. I think Cal could have definitely won a couple more games that were some close losses. You look back at the Florida State game, the Miami game; those are games that they should have won.
Pitt,
Look at
North Carolina
UNLV.
State. Ugh.
Yeah, Pitt, North Carolina State. You look at UNLV; they probably should have won that Syracuse game, right? Uh, so their only two losses of the year probably should be just that those losses to Boise State. So I think these are good teams. I had a tough time picking this game, but I am gonna ride with Cal here, uh, and here's why. I just think that they're more talented. I do, and I think Cal also. I don't know that like. I think UNLV last year in that bowl game. I think that was a really tough matchup for them because that Kansas team was really good that they got matched up with that in that bowl game, the one that they got killed in, and that secondary was maybe a little bit worse than it was this year. I think this UNLV team is better this year than they were last year for sure, and I don't think that that's a crazy. Now, if they had Jaden Mayava, maybe the ceiling of this team could have been reached. But I think for on Cal's side, right, I think they are going to try to run the football. I know that they haven't been able to do it effectively, but I also believe in these other quarterbacks. Like I believe in Chandler Rogers, right? And if he doesn't play, I don't hate CJ Harris either, right? Like that's a guy that has played meaningful football in the MAC. Has he been great? All right. No. Okay. But I do think that having some elevated talent around him, I think he has enough experience to where like he could come into this football game and maybe manage it, right? I also just I like the coaching. If Barry Odom's not there, I like uh I like Cal's coaching staff. I really do.
Yeah, and they're also getting, a new offense coordinator in there. Brian Harson's coming over, back to the West Coast, maybe where he more comfortable, more familiar. Be interesting to see what happens there in 2025 and beyond for this Cal team. Listen, I am pretty concerned about the Cal losses there, right? So you mentioned Mendoza, right? Especially if Rogers is hurt. I don't love CJ Harris, obviously, for a third string quarterback. He's a lot more experience than maybe a lot of teams that you do get in these bowl games. So I guess it's not the worst thing in the world. But you also talk about, is Kadu Olave hurt? Is he going to play in this game? I'm still concerned about that. Isaiah Hunter, right, one of the better receivers on this Cal team. He's in the portal. That's a big loss. I know you have depth there, and you've kind of been banged up in that spot, and you brought in a ton of talent in the portal last year. but that's a guy that I think is a pretty good difference maker for you. I was very impressed with UNLV and like not entering the portal and not seeing this mass access to players in the portal after Barry Odom left. I think that speaks a lot to the culture and the buy-in right now for UNLV. I'll go UNLV because I do think they'll be able to stop the run. Obviously, didn't work great last week against Ashton Genty, but who has stopped Ashton Genty? So it's not really, a knock, I don't think, on UNLV. I think they still have an explosive offense. I assume the offensive coordinator is still going to be calling plays. I know he's looking for other jobs right now, but I still feel pretty good about that. There's a lot of veterans on this team, even if that's not the case, and they'll be able to ride it out. Malik Williams is the best quarterback in this game. That's going to be suited up, I think, by far. That's going to make a difference in the spot here. Give me UNLV. Also, by the way, even though it's in California, right? But Vegas
It's
to
closer
to LA
to
is
Vegas. Yeah.
it's not it's very quick, and you got to drive all the way up from Berkeley or down from Berkeley, I guess, for our Cal Bears. But yeah, I like UNLV in the spot here.
Yeah, that's not crazy.
Short dogs.
I'll say with the transfer portal non-mass access they're talking to about UNLV, does that maybe mean that these players like their hire?
Dan Mullen.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely intriguing. It's very interesting. We talked about him, I feel like for a while now. When is he going to step his toe back into football? Um, what he did with
Thought it might
Florida.
be at like a big name offensive coordinator position,
You
but
saw Chip Kelly, obviously Gus Malzahn. Like you kind of think of those guys in similar spots in terms of not loving the grind of recruiting, but I also think we're in a much better spot here. Dan Mullen's been able to sit on the other side and learn a lot of things, and I think he'll have a fun time at UNLV. We'll obviously get very much more in depth to it there, so it'd be very interesting. But I think there's a lot of momentum right now in this UNLV program, even after losing Barry Odom. Um, I think they'll get this win here and continue that moving forward.
well, let me ask this: what's stopping you? And maybe this is a spoiler, but what's stopping you from putting UNLV on your best bets?
The talent gap potentially, like from
Yeah,
all 22 guys there. So like it does
yeah,
worry me that if Cal can just line up, and yes, they couldn't run the ball, in the ACC there, but if they can just run up and line up and just run the football with Ott and the other guys there, it would concern me, right? And also if Chandler Rogers is playing too, I would feel a lot less concerned about this Cal offense.
right,
Um,
right.
but yeah, that's
Now
kind of where I'm at.
UNLV's played an ACC team this year. They played a 9-3 ACC team this year and took them down to the wire. Probably should have won that game if
Couldn't stop the
Woodyard
run though.
if Woodard can catch an interception and pass interference calls and what have you. Like
They did struggle though defensively a little bit. I mean, LaQuint
they
Allen's a
did.
good,
They
very
gave,
good football player.
and that's a Syracuse team that wasn't really able to run the ball all year, and they ran the ball on
Right.
UNLV. And Ashton Genty just ran for 200 yards. I mean, but that's Ashton
I
Genty.
think
So
part of it was, they were not gonna get beat by Common Core, and which is a crazy statement by the way. In 2024, that's how crazy. It's awesome he's been for Syracuse. So I don't know. We'll see. But I do think maybe there's going to be a size differential, right? A little bit. There's going to be different talent differentials and physicality, whatever. But I don't know. I think it'd be very interesting.
let's head over to the New Orleans Bowl. Sam Houston, Georgia Southern. Another really good matchup and an intriguing matchup as well. Only because, and I think that now we did see Sam Houston do well, okay, without. I think not having Casey Keeler and some of these players in the transfer portal, I don't know how many. Some of these guys are. There's a lot of starters here on this list that are on the transfer portal for Sam Houston. But when I watch Georgia Southern, are you that impressed with them? Like, no, they found ways to win football games. J.C. French did enough in some games, and he also lost them some football games. And I do think Clay Helton isn't a terrible coach. I know people like to look at his USC tenure and be like, that was garbage. I think Clay Helton's a fine coach. I think he is doing well at Georgia Southern. I, I'm on Georgia Southern here because I'm looking at who's in and who's out for the Sam Houston team, but I can't help but think about all of the mistakes that I've seen Georgia Southern do this football season. And I can't help but think, yeah, Georgia Southern can find a way to lose this football game. Not to mention, okay, how much is this Georgia Southern team going to care about this game? Because guess what? Last year, they had a pretty damn good football team, and they're out partying at 3 a.m. the night before the football game after I bet on them against Ohio, and then they lose by 40. All right. Yeah, it stings a little bit. All right. This is not going to go on my best bets because maybe I'm a little bit, maybe it's some PTSD. All right. But maybe it's a different culture. There's different players. All right. Maybe it's wrong for me to assume certain things about their culture. It probably is wrong. But when it comes to preparing for bowl games, right, is, I don't know.
It's something to think about too. And you're going to be in New Orleans,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
it's not like you're going to Albuquerque, you're going to Idaho. Like it's a lot different, I think. When you do see that it happen, obviously, how do you predict it? How do you know about it? Who knows? And maybe you do learn from it. If you are Clay Helton and you actually, maybe you get there a couple days earlier, or maybe you plan to stay a couple days after, whatever it may be. It's it's just very bizarre. I totally remember that game last year. It was crazy. But listen, from the reports I've heard is that I expect these players to play. I do expect them to come in and just make one last ride for everybody. I think Hunter Watson will make some plays. I think they're going to get a win here. I know it's 6 is a lot
Okay.
to make up. I'll just take, as obviously I'll take the 6 points, but I'll listen. I'll take Sam Houston State, excuse me, the Bearcats to win as well. Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think after next year, it'll be a bit of a ride, in terms of replacing Ducker and Evans and a lot of these guys. But, for right now and what that's who's going to be playing and suiting up in New Orleans, be very interesting. Plus, the drive from Houston, New Orleans is not very bad as well. Or I guess Sam Houston's up, not
Yeah.
kind of
This is bowl
suburbs.
season. This is bowl
Yeah,
season. There have to be underdogs that win, right?
exactly. And
There has to be. And right now, like I'm looking at my slate right now, and there's a lot of favorites on my slate. All right.
exactly. This is kind of what I found here. Plus conferences too. Like you see teams like it's hard to just compare conferences. We already took and talked about James Madison and Western Kentucky. That's a CUSA and Sun Belt matchup, just like this one is here. I do think JMU much better football team than Georgia Southern and Sam Houston, obviously. Obviously Western Kentucky one of the better teams in the CUSA. There's definitely a gap there, but Sam Houston I think is a damn good team as well. Right, they were right there to win, to be able to have a chance to win the CUSA, and they couldn't get it done because Jack State ended up not winning and their quarterback got hurt. But yeah, listen, I like Sam Houston State here. I think their defense also is going to show up and make plays and maybe turn the ball over. JC French throwing interceptions, putting the ball in harm's way, get some short fields here and there. Yeah, it could be a big deal, especially in a spot where, maybe, yeah, just yeah, big things happen. Like you see a lot of trick plays, you see a lot of turnovers in these bowl seasons. So I think the spot here where the Bearcats get
Yeah.
a win here.
Although, if you want to look at the strength of schedule and play that card, okay, there is a gigantic difference between Georgia Southern's and Jacksonville, or sorry, well, and Jacksonville State's schedule, but Sam Houston's schedule. I mean, even the out of conference. I mean, you look at the out of conference for Sam Houston, and it's Rice, UCF, and Hawaii.
How many teams are going bowling?
Yeah, and I guess
None of
Texas
them.
State as well. Who they did win. That's a good win, and that's a Sunbelt team.
Oh, I guess
But at
yeah.
that
I guess
time,
Texas State's.
yeah, and it was in Huntsville, right? So I don't know that if you're going strictly based on that performance, it required Hunter Watson running for 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and a late second half surge after Texas State was up 39-21 at halftime, and then Sam Houston ended up winning 40-39 on a last second field goal. So uh, it required a lot of things for Sam Houston to win that football game. I think Texas State's better than Georgia Southern, but I'm riding with Georgia Southern here. Don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about a lot of these games, all right, but there are 4 in particular that I like a lot for the best bets. But anyways, let's move on here. Let's talk about the Cure Bowl. Okay, Ohio is playing against Jacksonville State. Another interesting conference matchup. You got the CUSA champion squaring off against the MAC champion. You got a head coach from both schools heading over, taking jobs at different schools. It's a really interesting matchup right here. Ohio is favored by what 3.5 here.
Don't know if it
So
changed. Yeah, it's
we'll pick it at three and
three.
a half. There's
Yeah,
threes out
three.
there, which
Yeah.
will be important for later. But I think 3.5. We'll pick this game at, and I'll take Ohio. They've been playing such good football recently, and so is Jacksonville State. I get it. Okay, I think the strength of schedule, uh, it's different, right? And I know you're going to look at Ohio and be like, well, that's the MAC, and like, how good is their strength of schedule? I actually, now I'm looking at it. Maybe it is pretty similar. Actually, maybe their strength of schedule might be pretty similar. Now that
Jack
I'm
State
looking
had
at
a
it,
couple tough out of conference games, right?
they did,
They
but they
should
also
perform well in
they
it.
also lost though to a MAC team
And not a great MAC team, by the
and
way.
not a good
Eastern
MAC
Michigan.
team, and that was now Chris Creighton. I mean, obviously a dog of a coach, and that was early in the season. And since that,
It was also on the road as well, going way up
yeah,
north. The Gray Field.
yeah, a lot of variables there. But I mean, Ohio, even with Tim Alvin leaving, how many players we got opting out or in the transfer portal? None,
Zero.
none. Give me the Bobcats. What are we talking about here? Let's go. Okay, I get it. Jacksonville State can run the ball very effectively. You know who else can run the ball effectively? Just about every team in the MAC. All right, to MAC standards, right? And Ohio has put the clamps on people. They've put the clamps on people in recent weeks, and it hasn't just been, you know, it has just been one game either. They are playing what Parker Navarro is playing unreal, and it was just at this game last year, not the Cure Bowl, but it was the Myrtle Beach
They were in
Bowl,
Myrtle Beach, yeah.
yeah, against Georgia Southern. Parker Navarro had his first start, and honestly, he didn't do that much, right? It was Ricky Hunt was the guy that scored like three or four touchdowns for Ohio, who's now a backup running back for Ohio. Parker Navarro, we've seen the growth and the development over this last full year, right? And of course, we've seen the development from Tyler Huff as well. Being probably the best, most dynamic athlete the CUSA has to offer at the quarterback position, and Trey Stewart being really good for them as well. But I I can't help but love Ohio in this spot. I really do. I mean, come on, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I'm with you here. 3.5 is not enough to persuade me against Ohio here. Obviously, Jacksonville State has had a fantastic season, and I will say this too about them. Say what you want about the USA, but Tyler Huff and maybe Stewart or Trey Stewart probably the best tandem they've seen since Syracuse all the way back in week 1 there with Kyle McCord and Quint Allen. So I think it's going to be a step up in competition potentially, explosiveness, all that good stuff. But I do wonder too. There are a lot of opt outs for Jacksonville State, which makes sense, right? So you got some guys there, a couple defensive backs that are pretty important as of right now. We'll see what happens as we get closer to the game, and who enters the portal, who doesn't. Last year, players that were in the portal did not play for the Gamecocks, but who knows if this is going to be like a JMU situation where, remember last year, all those players were on the portal, but they all came back because the coach wasn't going to be there, and they one last ride there in their bowl game. Very interesting, though, but I don't care. I don't, even if they do play, I don't really care. Tim Albin, gone, see ya, great coach. Charlotte's going to love him, but Ohio is going to be so, so good. I do want to ask you this, though, here. Parker Navarro or Tyler Huff, who is the better quarterback?
Tyler Huff.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. He just does more for their team. Like Ohio
I
doesn't
agree.
require Navarro to do that much stuff comparatively to Hunt. Excuse me, Huff. Huff's a 2,000-yard passer and a 1,000-yard rusher, which is crazy, crazy impressive. One of the better players in the country, one of the most slept-on players in the country for sure. But
I mean,
yeah, I'm
Ohio
with you
is,
here.
it, and Jacksonville State's just as hot, right? But Ohio's ripped off 6 straight wins, right? All of which double-digit point wins. Every
Three
single one.
touchdowns, three scores, 3 scores
Yeah, they were all. Yeah, actually, if you're looking at Toledo, Toledo was the closest one. It was a 17-point game
on the road.
on the
This
road.
Bobcat team's good, man. I can't
It
believe I
is.
tweeted out. I was over in Athens about a month ago now, I guess, and as we tweeted out a picture, we're like, and I was at their stadium, and I tweeted out a picture, and it was like they were like plus 550 at the time to win the MAC, which was like third or fourth, which was crazy, and they ended up steamrolling everybody, and Yeah, they've been
You and I
so bad.
both. You with Ohio, me with Arizona State.
Yeah,
Both. We were on it. We just didn't put actual hard-earned cash on it, which was ridiculous.
it's tough to
So,
do. It's tough to do.
but yeah, but
But
I will be putting hard-earned cash on this game, and y'all will have to stick around and watch your best bet segment to find out what that is. Let's move on then to the last game. Unless CD, you have anything else for that game?
no.
Let's talk
Oh
about the
wait,
gas.
real quick. I do
Oh,
want to
okay.
say, are you worried about potential? Obviously, it's not going to be crazy hot weather right this time in December in Orlando, but you got an Ohio team right from the Midwest going all the way down to Florida.
They went down to Myrtle Beach last year and absolutely steamrolled Georgia Southern.
Yeah,
Not worried. Not worried.
yeah.
Same quarterback. Not worried.
Okay.
Let's go to the Gasparilla Bowl. Speaking of Florida, Florida is playing against Tulane. Tulane. Some interesting opt outs here. Uh, Ty Thompson's getting the call at quarterback here.
Well, he's in
Former
the
Oregon.
portal.
He's in the portal, but I believe he's starting
Yeah,
because Mensa's not playing, and I don't believe
Kai
uh,
Horton is also in the
Kai
portal.
Horton. I don't believe he's playing either. I don't believe.
I don't know if Kai Horton's going to suit up though, because otherwise, who's your emergency quarterback? Because they also run the ball with Ty Thompson. Like that's what
I,
the bowl season's crazy.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think that adds to why the line. No, here's the thing too. Florida has dealt with a ton of problems as well. Not really in the portal. I mean, maybe you're losing, Jakeem Jackson, some other
It's more
guys,
injuries, but they've been
right?
dealing with that
Jack
all
Byron.
year,
It's been injuries exactly, and this team,
which is
even dealing with those injuries,
impressive.
have been better and better and better every month. They were playing better football. Testament to a lot of those coaching staffs,
Yeah,
those players. Momentum, I think, is a real thing in college football. Florida has a ton of it. And I don't think they're going to let this spot here where you lose to Tulane stifle that momentum as it's going into the offseason.
yeah. I mean, you lost Eugene Wilson pretty early in the season. That was a big deal. You lost Graham Mertz early in the season. That was a big deal. And then also your secondary for Florida has been banged up the whole season. You brought in Asa Turner from Washington to be a plug and play starter, and he has been injured the whole year. Jason Marshall, who is a stud, has been banged up all year. Devin Moore banged up all year. You just they can't get enough, right? That they can't catch a break. However, this Tulane team is on a bit of a schneid right now. I think we can all admit that just a little bit. And I think this Florida team is so much more talented, even with the injuries, even with opt outs. I think that this is an absolutely appropriate line to have at 13 and a half. And I don't think it's enough. So give me Florida to win and cover in this game against Tulane. And that's going to wrap up. I'm gonna be taking all favorites in this episode, every single one.
Which is not going to hit, by the way. I'm pretty
Yeah,
damn sure about that. I
no, it won't.
Credit to me, I've got two. I got two dogs, right? I've got UNLV and I've got Sam Houston State, but I'm not going to be taking Tulane here. I'm with you here, 13 and a half. This would be a game that when it was announced, originally I was like, oh, this is going to be super, super intriguing, right? You've got Tulane and they're keeping John Summerall because of the UNC just fiasco there. And we'll get into that
Brutal.
as we get into the portal there. But listen, Tulane also, right, even with Mensa and all these other guys in the portal and with John Zermal, they showed two duds in a row when they were right there knocking on the door of the playoff spot. And with all the craziness that happened at the end of November and early December, right, like Tulane had a real chance to even make it as an at-large team, right, with their schedule and whatnot. Probably wouldn't have happened, but the fact that you had a chance knocking on the door to accomplish your goal right coming in the season and you just throw a dud against Memphis, a dud against Army, yeah, brutal. I don't love where they're at right now. You talk about I talked about momentum earlier, right? It's not looking good. You got two teams trending up and down. I don't know how Vegas quantifies all that. I'm going to here. I'm going to say it's more than 14 points. So yeah, give me Florida here minus 13 and a half as well. I also think too, like the bowl practice is going to help a team like Florida more than a lot of teams because they are pretty damn young and right, they have a lot of talent. And sometimes those young talent guys, it takes them, 10, 12, 14 weeks to get ready to play a football game. And by the time you get to November and to, this bowl season, you're going to see some guys playing for them. It's like, whoa, Right? Who's that guy? That guy's got some real talent there, and he's finally ready to play for him, as well as DJ Lagway too, getting more and more developed, having time to sit down, take a breath, get healthy, work on some chemistry with his guys, have a couple weeks where he is the full time starter. Like it's almost like a mini off season here before the bowl game. Yeah, I love Florida's spot here, and I'll be talking about them later on in our best bets segment for sure.
And like you can look at Tulane's metrics all you want, but the reality is their strength of schedule is quite garbage. It is. I'll be the first to admit it. And Florida, if you want, if you want to quantify their strength of schedule, uh, yeah, it was probably by far. I would say preseason because of Florida State. You would have thought that it would have been the toughest schedule in the country because Florida State kind of stunk. It was still probably a top five strength of schedule in the country. And you want to flip it over to the Tulane side, and in terms of like American teams, there are not a lot of American teams that had worse strength of schedules. I want to point out like Tulsa, maybe Florida Atlantic, I guess Memphis, North Texas, and Tulane's out of conference schedule kind of saves them from that, because they did play Louisiana, who they did beat, and then they did play Kansas State and Oklahoma. So they had a good out of conference schedule, but they lost to those Power Five teams, and then they swept through the garbage, bottom of the barrel, terrible AAC teams that are quite frankly some of the worst teams in the entire country, and then they get smacked by Memphis and smacked by Army, right? So they've really beaten only like one solid team this year, and it was week 3 or week 4 whenever they played Louisiana. So I'm not bought into this Tulane team being all that good. And when you lose Mensa, count me out. Give me Florida, lay them. I would lay even more than that, by the way, which I guess might be a preview to our best bet segment a little bit, but.
Yeah,
I'd like Florida a lot here. I mean, come on, even with the injuries and the opt out, it doesn't matter, dude. This is a good Florida team, man. And Billy Napier deserves a ton of credit for even scraping out 7 wins this year.
yeah, I do. And I see too. Like Tulane has struggled to stop the run. Like Jaden Ball, right? Montrell Johnson, I believe he's playing, right? Jacoby Jackson, like they don't even need Lagway to be special, and I think they can just line up
No,
and just pound the rock.
yeah, I agree 100%. Let's get into our best bets. Let's talk about them. Okay, I've got 4. CD's got 3. Okay, on the year, I finished 42 and 41 after having an incredible start to the year and being up a lot of units. Okay, now I've made that up in game to game picking against the spread and the 30 dogs. That's where I made up my ground. CD, you finished 41 and 36, up 3.1 units. That's pretty solid. You know, I mean, we're not professional handicappers. We're just out here as college football analysts, picking games, laying bets. There are college football analysts out there that are down 20 plus units. Some big ones that I can name off the top of my head. So I like the spot they're in. And in bowl game season, I got hot during bowl season last year. So I feel pretty good about this one. I'll start over with you because you did lay South Alabama -7.5. You put it out on Twitter. This episode won't be posted in time for that game. So, in fact, we're recording this after the game. South Alabama did not cover, which sucks, by the way, because they should have. The backdoor cover was brutal.
Okay,
Brutal.
didn't we talk about the backdoor cover too? I feel like we did, and we were like, well, no, they're gonna be blowing them up by too much, anyways. But listen, they delayed touchdown, which helped me for sure. They late
And
touchdown,
they,
but they
they,
had
they didn't need to score that touchdown, by the way.
they didn't, and it was nice. It ended up, all of a sudden Western Michigan's down there, but you had the penalty, and then you had a 47-yard field goal with a Mac kicker, and he drills it. So happy for that kid, but didn't work out for us. I still stand by the principles of that bet. Still stand by that South Alabama is a better football team, much better than Western Michigan, and I'm glad it showed out. Even without Gio Lopez, even without Jamal Pritchett, even without the stud Fluff Bothwell, and they got it done.
They did. So, yeah, in the bowl pool, I put like a massive nuke on South Alabama. I put 40 plus points on them. So, anyways, my first bet of the day is going to be Memphis -4.5 against West Virginia for all the reasons that we talked about. The Memphis playing good football right now. Some of these West Virginia opt outs. Uh, I I just think Memphis against the run is a little bit underrated. I think their secondary is bad, but is Garrett Green going to be able to take advantage of that? My answer to that's no. So I do think this is a spot where West Virginia is talented enough to absolutely win this football game. So is this my favorite bet of the day that I have on this list? No, but I'm gonna lay Memphis minus 4.5.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. I mean, I thought about it, but then sometimes the coaching fires, all that stuff. It does scare me here. It's not the worst pick in the world for you though. I was on them, in our show and our pick, so don't hate that at all. I guess I'll go mine here. I got Ohio minus 3.5. I feel like that's pretty cash there.
You can get it minus 3. I'll give it to you.
Thank you. I'm at -3. We picked the -3.5. That's why it's in my head right now. But -3, Ohio over Jacksonville State. We talked about all those reasons why. Feel pretty good about that.
I'm on that with you. Let's go. Come on. We know. We talked about this. We talked about this. The team has 0 opt outs and their head coach left. How is that? Let's go, dude. They're ready to play. They want to win this ball game bad. Third straight 10-win season for Ohio. Come on. Jacksonville State, all the credit in the world. All the credit in the world. Different. It's different over there in Ohio. So, yeah, I'll let you go again because that'll be mine.
I'm gonna add one here I didn't tell you about, but I'm gonna go Tulane team total under 16.5 points here at +104.
Wow.
Listen, I think what Florida does well is they stop the run, and they have against some good football teams here. And if Tulane's onto their backup quarterback here, who also likes to run the football, Ty Thompson, and like these packages here, you can stop a really dynamic player, Mekhi Hughes, and you can kind of shut things down. I also think Florida, too, is just kind of going to be not that they're going to be, riding, going through the motions here, but I think a quick game here, a quick second half here would be awesome for Florida. And I think they're going to be kind of turning that clock, making sure, they get out of there healthy win with a win. So, yeah, team total under 16.5.
Yeah, I like that. Minus 104, too. That might be pretty good value. I might be hopping on that off air with you, but I'll stick with the picks that I had. I'll go Cal UNLV under 50.5, as long as we're talking about totals right now. I do think the quarterback situation for Cal, if Chandler Rogers is not playing, this helps me even more. I think Cal's defense is good enough to stop that UNLV offense. Uh, I I do think that both teams are going to try to run the ball. I think Cal saw the formula maybe against Syracuse, and I do think that Cal coming in, they might try to run the ball. They may not have success with it, and that's fine. No big deal. But I'll take under 50.5 points. I think that this is a 24-21 type game, 28-21, and that's under 50.5 for me.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I don't hate that at all, especially with the quarterback problems there. Moving on to my last one here, I'll go back to the Gasparilla Bowl, back to Tampa, Florida, back on, or I guess against Tulane here. I'll go Florida minus 13.5. Again,
Boom.
feel pretty good about that. I think you're on that too. Hell yeah. All the reasons that we talked about, significant talent advantage, a team with great momentum, a team with a lot of talent, and playing good football right now, on the football, stop the run, all the things that require to cover the 13.5 point spread. They're going to get it done here. And that's going to be, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. Let's go. So to recap, I'm on Memphis minus 4.5, Ohio minus 3, Cal UNLV under 50.5, and Florida minus 13.5. And CD was on South Alabama minus 7.5, unfortunately backdoor cover. Ohio minus 3, Tulane under 16.5 team total, and Florida minus 13.5. Guys, it's going to do it for us for this bowl game part 1 preview. Thank you all for tuning in. I am pumped for this bowl season. I'm ready to wake up every day. CD and I, no longer in school right now. We're done. Well, you're gonna go to grad school and be a PT like a nerd, but we're done. So we are gonna be absolutely implanted on the couch watching college football all week long. So make sure y'all are tuning in for the rest of the bowl season coverage as well as off season coaching carousel and stuff like that. And I guess last point, last thought. Okay, before we get off air, Heisman Trophy. was voted on among college media members and whatever. And it's unfortunate that my Ashton Genty plus 1,000 ticket did not cash. And I got that before people make fun of me. I got that like week 4 of the season, week 5 of the season. So it's chill on the hate. Yeah, I looking back on it, I do think Ashton Genty deserved it, but I also think Travis Hunter deserved it as well. I think they were both outstanding in different ways. I think Ashton Genty was transcendent at the running back position, further beyond anything that we've seen probably in the last 15 years. And I know people want to compare Kevin Smith and Melvin Gordon, whatever. I think Ashton Genty transcended those players. Uh, and I also think Travis Hunter did something that we haven't seen ever in our lifetimes. So I think they're both outstanding in their own ways.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I echo that. I think sometimes in a spot right now, and I hate to get on my soapbox here, but I will, where like, to say one opinion here that we think this guy should have won here automatically determines, whatever we think of the value of this person here, person B is. I don't think that's true at all. I think just because, you and I also think Genty probably would have gotten my vote doesn't mean I think Hunter didn't deserve it. I think there's a million
Yeah,
reasons why he didn't deserve it.
absolutely.
I think the hate's getting crazy. I think it's awesome that two teams that aren't historical powers are getting a lot of attention here. Two positions right that are typically maybe afterthoughts of Heisman, like a running back like Genty, and then wide receiver / defensive back, more so defensive side there for Travis Hunter. Obviously, those guys are sensational. Can't wait to watch them in their bowl games. I love that Hunter's playing in this bowl game, which is freaking awesome. I think you saw, what kind of person he was in that Heisman Trophy speech. It was very fun to see, as well as Genty in the
Yeah,
playoffs there. It's going to be awesome.
he's like a good guy.
And
Right?
he went to Jackson State. Like, he did. He was like, and everyone's like, oh, you're not going to succeed there. And if you do, whatever, like, you can't do this. You can't win the Heisman. You can't go first round. You can't go top overall. And, like, he's
He did
doing
all
all
of it.
these things.
He
And
literally
we'll
did
see
all
where
of
he
it.
ends up in the draft. But, yeah, it's very exciting here. I think it's, I think we should all be winners because it was a heck of a season and those guys deserve it. It's very, very interesting. There was a stat there that did show up about, quarterbacks and maybe SEC players as well not being, highly voted on or voted on at all.
It's good for
So
college football.
it's good for college football, right? And it's gonna make I think the playoffs that much more insane because you don't
Yeah.
have these like crazy elite teams with crazy elite quarterbacks. I guess if you consider Dylan Gabriel elite quarterback, that's a conversation for a different time. But yeah, props to both those guys. I'm happy for this Cam Scattaboo love that he was getting the votes as well. So
Yeah.
that's my
Bryson
side
Daly.
note. Tyler Warren too. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I just think there was a big talking point about like how like, oh, this is bad for football that Ashton Genty didn't win it. I don't think so. I think like I think that this year, not having a quarterback and choosing between generational running backs and generational two-way players, like I think it's good for the sport that we had a genuine debate about two players that were not a quarterback for the Heisman Trophy, and I also think it gave people different things to think about. So when voting for these awards, but nevertheless, was I a little bit disappointed? Yeah, absolutely. But also seeing how close the voting was, I was not upset at all. So
And Genty won the Maxwell too, which different
yeah, Genty won the
conversation.
Maxwell,
Different award, by the way, different award. But
which was voted on coaches and people that maybe know football a little bit more. But it's
yeah,
fine. It's fine. It's fine. But just want to throw that out there. But anyways, thank you all again for tuning in. We appreciate y'all's support throughout the way. And yeah, CD, anything for us on the way out here?
no, it's been a blast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Obviously, like we said before, enjoy bowl season. It's a hell of a time. Make sure you are subscribed, post notifications, Twitter at the Redshirt Soft. A lot of good stuff coming out there. So make sure you are, keeping tabs with us because we'll be a lot of communication not coming out with our way. Also, we've got a bowl pool too. If you're still watching, you haven't joined that, you probably still have time to. We're going to keep it open a little bit more. There'll be a lot of other stuff, information out about that, but a lot of fun to do. A little bit of a competitive edge.
Absolutely. And we'll see y'all in the next one. It's not too late to make a free $50. That's right. You got to do two things. One, you got to subscribe to the Redshirt Sophomore podcast. That's all you got to do. And then The second step to that is you're going to go in the link in the description and join the college football bowl pool pick'em that we're putting on. Yep, that's right. Introducing the Redshirt Sophomore college football bowl pool pick'em. You're going to go in that link. You're going to find all of the bowl games, and you're going to pick those bowl games, and you're going to sign confidence points. How confident are you that that team is going to win that bowl game? And there's a lot of points to sign, and it's never too late to join. That's the thing. You would think, oh man, the first bowl game already passed, South Alabama, Western Michigan. It's not too late. Okay, you only would lose 1 point. Okay, and generally, out of the 400 some points that you can earn, uh, you're not even going to come close to making all those points. So it really, 1 point is not the biggest difference in the world. So make sure though that you are subscribed to the Redshirt Sophomore to qualify for this prize. And good luck to you all.